United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do a roll call, please.
Lauren? Here. Dawn? Here. Christy? Yes, here. Jenna? Here. Ryan?
Here.
Kristen? Here. Brett?
Here.
David?
Here.
Jane?
Here. Quorum is present. Dawn, could you please lead us in this item 2A in the adoption of the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda and the consent agenda as presented.
Second. I hope I have a second.
Second.
Thank you.
I object the approval of the minutes.
So you're making.
I move,
Just parliamentary, there's no further discussion on that. It will, the approval of minutes will immediately become your first item of the business. It's just immediately removed from the consent.
Thank you. Is there any amendment to the motion?
I move to add executive session as item 10C under new business in order to discuss the tentative agreements with DEA and DESPA.
Second.
Any discussion on that? It's pretty straightforward. We just didn't realize we were gonna have to have that at the time we set the original. If there's no discussion, Jennifer, a roll call vote on the amendment, please.
Kristen? Yes. Dawn?
Yes,
Jenna? Yes. David? David?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes. Mine's-
Ryan?
Yes.
Lauren? Yes. Christy? Yes. Jane?
Yes, amendment passes unanimously. Back to the main motion. If there's any other discussion, Jennifer will do a roll call vote on the motion as amended, please.
Christy? Yes. Brett?
Yes.
Lauren? Yes. Kristen?
yes,
David?
Yes.
Dawn? Yes. Jenna? Yes. Ryan?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes, motion passes. Agenda set for the evening. All right. Is the minutes the first thing up?
The first item under new
In
business.
new business, thank you. All right, then, if you would lead us in the greeting and reading, please.
Yeah, for our greeting, we'll take a look at our actual reading and then go around, greet each other and take the opportunity to share thoughts or reflections on this reading. Do we have a volunteer that'd like to read this out loud for us? Lauren?
Winning is great, sure. But if you're really going to do something in life, the secret is learning how to lose. Nobody goes undefeated all the time. If you can pick yourself up from a crushing defeat and go on to win again, you are going to be a champion one day. Winning is great, sure. But if you are really going to do something in life, the secret is learning how to lose. Nobody goes undefeated all the time. If you can pick yourself up from a crushing defeat and go on to win again, you are going to be a champion one day.
Would you like to start us off?
Sure. Good evening, board. Good evening, Laura. Yeah, I think maybe we all know people in our lives that are unbelievably talented, individuals or. But yeah, they didn't ever learn this lesson because they were so used to winning all the time that the first time they have a loss, it really bums them out and they don't get back in there. And I think this has something to do with every aspect of our lives, from sports to school to jobs to relationships. I think this is super important and something I think as a culture, we're trying to relearn again, at least from my generation of growing up. That wasn't really a focus, but I think it's a huge value. Christy?
Thank you. Good evening, board. Thank you. My first thoughts went from like learning how to lose to learning to not have it your own way. I'm trying to make this apply to me as a board member, and like winning. I'm like, how do you win on the board? That kind of to me means that you get it your way. And I'm like, I'm not sure if that. So anyway, my train of thought went from learning how to lose to learning to not have it your way, learning to see other perspectives, learning to see winning differently. So like maybe originally I was trying to win with my things going the way I wanted it to. I lost, like that didn't happen. And then maybe through that losing, like learning how to lose, it became learning to see the situation from a different perspective. And I think that's happened with me a lot being on the board. This last year was, we all kind of, maybe all of you, I don't know, but some of us, I think, come on here like, I want things to be like this and I want to change that. I have my thoughts on this. And then you get here and you realize you don't have a lot of say over that or whatever. But at the same time, your perspectives change because you see a much bigger picture and you see a different perspective. And so this to me translated to seeing winning differently, and it might mean that what's really the best, well, what is winning for the board is of just me, and how that's different. So I'm going to turn it over to Brett, please.
Good evening, board.
Good evening, Brett.
I'm having some lagging difficulties, so if it jumps out, you'll know why. You know what? It goes on to say where it talks about nobody goes undefeated all the time. As we were younger, I can remember thinking that it used to be a thing that winning is one of the things that you strive to do all the time, whether it was even with your parents or your friends or everything else. And as you grow older, you learn that, those times that you are defeated, it is a learning and growing process. And as you learn and grow, it brings you more into the world around you and those that you're dealing with. And it expands on a lot of things and helps you grow to be a better person. So with that, let's turn it over to Ryan.
Good evening, board.
Good evening, Ryan.
Kind of think about this when I'm teaching my daughter, because it's maybe not quitting, but you need to learn, you need to try different ways to go about things to complete your task, whether it be winning at that task, but it's looking at it and being able to tackle that from the different angles. And if you're defeated one way, well, that's one way you learn that it's not going to work for you. But it's lifelong learning. The more we lose, the more we actually get. Growing as a person, because we don't get it every. With that, I will take Salix.
Thank you. Good evening, board. You've all mentioned some really great points, but I think something important that goes with this speech that's not really in there is rivalries can be good, but learning to befriend the people that do defeat you, that challenge you, because the people that are going to show you when you're wrong and how you're wrong are going to help you grow a lot more than those who are compliant with you, on your winning side.
but not with you on the losing side. With that, I'll move to James. I don't think you've gone yet.
Thanks. Good evening, board.
Good evening, James.
I agree with this. My father used to say that which does not kill us makes us stronger. There's always growth and challenge. Sometimes that's where the most is. Some of the most challenging things are in defeat. So, yeah, it's what you do with it, not that you were defeated. Kristen.
Good evening, board.
Good evening, Kristen.
I was talking to my mom and she said, when my sister is talking to their daughter, she plays soccer and, there's winning. And they can't call it losing anymore. It's called, those are learning opportunities. So there's no losers, there's just learning opportunities. And I thought that was a great idea, just because we might lose at something doesn't mean it can't be a learning opportunity. Whether it's about our attitude about how we lose, which I think that's how the parents were referencing the learning opportunities, but we should always find learning in anything that we do, even in the losing part of that. And if we're not learning from those opportunities, we're not getting any better. So, Jenna.
Thanks, Kristen.
Evening, board.
Good evening, Jenna.
My mind immediately went to sports and the value of physical activity and sporting competitions that we have at some of our sites, not all. But also it made me think about and Lauren, you spoke to this, I think in our generation, failure was failure. It wasn't so much about enough being an opportunity for growth, which I see that in our instructional model and in the practice of teachers here that everybody's perceiving and helping students perceive failure as an opportunity for growth. Dawn.
Evening, board.
Good evening, Dawn.
Wilma Rudolph was a runner. She might have been at the relay team, but it makes me think of like how you deal with defeat as a team instead of just as an individual, which can sometimes be more challenging because you're not just dealing with your own personal loss. Dan?
Good evening, board.
Good evening, Dan.
It was interesting when I saw this kind of quote come up, things I was looking at, because I was just doing some other things I was listening to, podcasts, Freakonomics. They did a whole series on failure. And recently there's one where they're really looking at kind of trying to unpeel and how to really redirect kind of like the societal aspect we have that still really focuses on gaming. We might talk about, oh, let's rephrase something, but still like this. And they were looking at talking to MBA students in college, and still there's people going like, yep, it's all about success. It's if you don't succeed, it's something wrong with you ultimately, and like trying to like really shift that mindset. In one college actually offering a class in failure and exploring that and like putting students in situations where it's like you will experience failure so that we can understand what it feels like and how to learn from it in a structured setting. But also you have that risk of kind of going through and still carrying with you this expectation that I am somehow less than because I failed at something, because I was not successful, rather than looking at things much more holistically and really actively looking at all those experiences and what do I take from that person, what do I take from professionally, what are the gains in an abject failure of being kind of comfortable with that overall. Really interesting. Jennifer?
Good evening, board.
Good evening, Jennifer.
I think that's a good reading. I think it's really good to show failure, especially to our kids. So when they go and move into adulthood, they know how to react when things don't go their way, because
as we all know, it happens all the time, and it'll help them be more resilient and, learn to navigate things and view things in a different perspective when they do fail, and they can get up and try again. Is there anybody else who has a comment? That's it. Okay.
Bring on to business item 4A, I'm assuming we don't have any public comment. Marie?
No one online?
That was. All right then, with that, we'll move on to business item 5A. We have, do we have a student presentation?
Required someone to organize that. This person's currently super busy teaching.
It's totally understandable.
And part of it's either they're too young to come here at 7 o'clock or too old.
Okay.
Teenagers.
Yeah, I understand that too.
I would say there was a great student presentation, and I also missed it, a great student presentation as community volunteer, where they constructed drums and did some drumming.
And she's coming again tomorrow, this lady that she's been coming once a month from
I saw some
CRNA,
pictures.
to be your health specialist to work with the kids. So it took a moment to get her on board with multi-age, but she's got it figured out now.
It's
Sometimes you get people that come in and then they see like, oh, my high schoolers and eighth graders. Yeah.
So if you're able to come to Cantwell tomorrow, you'd have a real fabulous.
Okay,
What time is that?
11, she'll be here at 11 tomorrow. So tomorrow, I think it's
Which work do I really want to get done? You're like,
something with string art.
Right.
You ever heard that? This guy from Indiana, that's what his name is for the string art.
well, we'll move right along. We have business item 6A, the mayor's report. Is Clay online, Dan?
He's not, he is, if I remember correctly, an AML or other municipal.
Okay.
events. So he apologizes for not being able to be with some of you last school board meeting. But he does send his written report and possibly just a full written report. Depending on timings, again, we're just swearing in.
Everybody get a chance to read over Clay's report? Questions? All right. Well, we will keep moving along. The administration reports, everybody get a chance to read over these? Any questions for Dan? Yes, Lauren?
I should have written it down, my apologies. You just mentioned a new thing in here, sorry. Principal Gurley, and I was just curious what it was. We'll be discussing under school operations, we'll be discussing everyday speech, social and emotional learning platform and potential program for K through 5 SEL lessons.
So, and you asked before, I could have gotten more information on that specific aspect, so it's a more specific kind of set of curriculum materials, to help social. Social.
Oh, right, okay, that's what it was.
One of the educational abbreviations we throw around, assuming everybody.
I'll catch up one day. Okay, thank you, that's it.
If any of us want more information, I'm sure it's fine for us to follow up with you.
Yeah, I can reach out. Get some information.
I just want to commend again, Karen Martin, the Director of Learning and Instruction, her report and the way she structured it to address the, her actions that she's taken to the different strategic plan elements. And it's really a wealth of information, not just on what Karen's doing, but what the schools are doing. Districts.
Any questions or comments on the reports? All right, we'll move on to section 8 then. We have the committee reports. Anything from any of the committee chairs that want to point out?
Mine covered.
I figured, yep. Nothing from policy.
No,
Well, with that, Dan, if Rena's ready, we'll move on to the business manager.
She's entering the room now.
Hello, Rena.
Good evening, board. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, this is my board report as of October 31st, 2023. So this report looks very, very different from the last month's board business manager report because Mr. Polta and I came together and reviewed the revenues and expenses, especially after the student count that ended on October 27th. So you will see, minimize my screen. You will see some variances on the revenues and expenditures. So I will start with local sources. So the local sources consist of our interest revenue, our E-rate, our local revenues, other local revenues, and interest and earned, like I said. So for October, we earned $12,000 on our interest and some additional other local revenues that we received during that month. And then you will see on the variance side, there's a $54,500. It's because we finally received the signed agreement with the forestry when they rented our Anderson School. So we're seeing that revenue, $54,500 from the forestry. And then the state sources, you will see an increase of $348,000 there. But first, we received our monthly foundation money of $491 and $725. So we adjusted state sources based on what we're seeing on our student count, and that will not be final though until we receive this reconciled document from DEED. I think normally we receive that mid-December. So there might be adjustment, but if it's not really like big adjustment, the next revision will be in May. But we will always show variances if we see any differences or, based on the information that we receive from DEED. And then the federal sources, no adjustments on that one, but we started seeing more impact aid money from the federal government because sometimes we receive impact aid from FY22. We still receive impact aid from FY23, and recently we just received our FY24 impact aid. So altogether, it's not just 1 year, it's an accumulation of different years. And then our special revenue grants, we started receiving our reimbursements that I submitted for our first quarter. So on October, we received $53,375. And then you will see on the variance column, there is like almost 800,000 variance. It's because we finally adjusted this report to show the early learning, which is the preschool grant that we received, which is $623,000, and the additional money that we received for our supplemental CLSD. And then finally, the transportation grant, there's a reduction of almost $8,000 there because we based the revenue on the count that we saw as of October 27th, but that will change again after we receive the reconciled numbers from DEED in mid-December. And then finally, I'm gonna show you the expenditures for October. On the bottom line, we finally made our first payment to first student for the month of August and September. So there's a payment of $106,000. And then the monthly expenditures on each line item, you will see pretty much within the average expenditures for each line item. And then you're gonna see the variance column again, which is if you want a detailed or summarized explanation of the variances, you can always go to the third page, and I will briefly explain that in a little bit. And then on the very bottom, you will notice that we have a deficit of $60,000 compared to, we said, $453,000. Is because of these adjustments that we made on expenditures. That's why it kind of made our deficit smaller. But then in our original budget, we said that we're going to use our transportation fund to cover the excess of the cost versus the revenue. We took that off. So our our fund balance now is almost 1.4. It's very there's a difference between the original and the revised. And this will be discussed in the budget revision section later. I'm just showing a summary or brief version of it. And if you can see the beginning of the year fund balance, it shows the fund balance that our audit report is showing, the almost 1.5 million, which is a difference of $354,000 from our original budget. And then, like I said, I'm going to go to the third page. And here's a brief explanation of why did we have variances. And most of them, you will see their employment cost adjustments. It's because sometimes in our original budget, we have this particular position and then it's covered by a grant. So we moved that position to be covered by grant. That's just one example. And then we adjusted our student allotment based on our actual peak students who are receiving allotments right now. So that's like $30,000 increase. And that includes employment cost adjustments too. And then the special education, same thing. Some of them covered by grant. We have to move it from operating to special revenue. And then there's some small adjustments here, like employment costs due to health insurance. There's a big one of 140 because we have to adjust our peak computer purchase. Now that we can, we have a better picture of how we order computers in our peak program. And staff travel for our school administrators, we reduced that. Employment costs for school administrator, like for example, is health insurance again, and things like that. And here, oops, there's some adjustments down here too, like district administration support, which is pretty much the business office department. There's a huge reduction on expenses. It's because we received quite a big special revenue, which is the early learning grant. So indirect cost is affected. So once you receive grant, 6.49% of that grant goes to indirect costs. So we offset the operating and the special revenue grant for that. So it got reduced by $60,000. And same thing with operations and maintenance. You can see here we adjusted it because of property insurance, half cost of the Siemens control panel. We're thinking about vehicle acquisitions and things like that. And that's student travel. That's why it's increase in funding for state for our special revenue, and then the student transportation cost adjustment because we budgeted originally for the increased route rate as 5%, but the actual increase is actually 8%. So our transportation fund will cover that extra cost that we have to pay out of our transportation fund. And then page 4 looks different also from last month's. Mr. Polta wanted me to show our grant based on state grants, recurring and non-recurring, which is, it makes sense because some of these grants, we don't get them yearly. Like this part right here, the competitive grants, you know, the safety and well-being, we got it this year because they offered it. Homeless too, we don't get that every year. It's just so happened that it's available. And there are no changes on this page actually, except the pupil transportation because we paid our August and September expenses, $106,000. And then last but not the least is page 5, which is the bank in fund balances. We have 1 million in our operating, almost 3.3 million in our business interest sweep. Like I said, we earned $12,000 for the month of October. Our operating has 1.6. Our transportation fund, so we paid that $106,000. So the amount from last month's report got reduced by $106,000. Our capital projects fund is the same as last month. I don't remember paying any additional bills for our Tri-Valley, but I heard from Curtis there might be another bill that we probably gonna receive and we need to pay. But I do not have that amount yet. For carryover student allotment, that's the same amount from last month, I believe. And then the current year, it will continue to decrease because our students continue to spend their current year allotment before the carryover. So all in all, we have almost $0.43 million in our bank and fund. So it's just as of October 31st. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions, please feel free to end.
Thank you, Rena. Questions for Rena or Dave? I think as always, you're incredibly thorough, Rena, so very clear. Thank you.
I'm sorry if I know that Mr. Polta has the section that that will talk about revision. I tried to be very brief on my version. I don't want to bust his bubble. All right.
Thank you, Rena.
I hope everyone will have a great night. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, keep moving. We have the Cantwell School Report. Great.
All right. Gonna read it to you, or you just want to ask questions?
Maybe if anything you want to highlight or celebrate.
Wow. We've been so busy, so maybe I would highlight that the lady, we're doing this couple challenges. So right now we're involved with the Alaska Energy Award with the Enter Valley called the Power Pledge Challenge. So it's we're sort of matching everything we're doing right now in science and everything to electricity and energy and how we get electricity here and how we can make, looking at solar, wind, and all the other things. So there's a ton of stuff that we're in the challenge in the state. So every month we're doing, right now we're working on a holiday challenge where you basically take recycled stuff, try to make a better decoration that's using LED lights. So last week we checked all the things in here. We're doing an energy audit at the school, which is really bad. But we did things like they compared with the LED lights and the incandescent lights and you can see the heat difference. There's a ton of stuff. And my brother's an electrician, just here who brought me the dad problem, not coming to support. So we did him, so we did a career profile for one challenge. So Lisa's his daughter, and we did a school, so you can look on the internet too, I think, and see this stuff. But so we're going after $2,000 as our goal. To do the challenge and some other challenges for donors. IXL, Prodigy. I find the competition and the winning is pretty good stuff for getting people inspired. But also thinking about what you guys were talking about with that stuff and support to learn how to use too. Let other people live. So we learned that here a lot in school because of the age differences. It's really fun to see when a fifth grader will let the kindergartner keep the goal in and not fall apart because he didn't get it. And we learn that over time, and it's really fun to see. With my own children, I learned that my daughter especially needed to learn how to lose. Like when she was 2 and 3 years old, I discovered that that was an important skill, was losing gracefully. So board games. I'm off track now, but it's all part of what we do here at the. It's, learning dynamics. That's where I'm at. But we have a ton of stuff going on, so I would just say. It's fun. Anybody that offers to say, do you want to come here and do something? I'm like, yes, please come. Had the energy lady, the CRNA ladies, the lady from Alaska Resource Education. She's been a couple times too. She's lots of fun. She's really having 2 days. Good stuff. So, and it's always like science oriented. That's a class that we don't get to do separately, so we're gonna build it together. But very busy.
Any other questions?
I just had a question about the volleyball. Is that a community volleyball or community?
It's
sport?
at their school for crew, the so try doing that with kindergarten too. Very fun, because I get out and play too, and I have a hard time not, I can spike that. Yeah, sometimes it's, yeah, we need the adults. Yeah, lots of fun, volleyball, things are lots of other things.
I have a question. Well, first of all, totally appreciate all you're doing for the Canwell School. I know that's a big lift. And, we're, East Village Coal Mines excited to welcome the Canwell kids to UNL next month. So we're super excited about that. And glad to work with Stephanie on that.
They
But
requested that, which is awesome.
yeah, we're excited to have them. I kind of wondered, as far as the READS Act and the MCAS, how did that go in Cantwell School as far as like that process and?
That's been wonky me too a little bit, but it's been going great. I mean, I love it because it's dialed everybody right in, and it sort of it helps me to feel like, oh yeah, okay, we're doing the right thing. And the program and Rachel Nicole, it was like amazing. She's like totally got it organized, got some track, and I don't know. I think it's amazing. So I think it's the best thing we've done in a long time for reading for our kids. And I've been doing it with the 4th, 6th, and 10th, and I hope they're doing it in the other places too, because I think 4th grade really missed out because of COVID. Thank you. It's good stuff.
Anyone else? Right, then we'll move on to your superintendent report.
Once you have a written report, I'll go through, highlight, add a few things. I want to thank kind of everybody involved with the elections, and that's for our students that helped, moderate the candidate forums, busy arranging this. All of the candidates that registered and ran, congratulations to those of you who won, but also thank you to everybody who stood up and said, I'd like to serve. At a time when public service isn't something that's really kind of looked at as like, oh, gee, what a fun thing to do. For so many people to express an interest is a great, I appreciate that. Really thank everybody also that just works and supported the process in terms of all of our election workers, those volunteers throughout the borough and all the polling stations. That's kind of like, the unsung heroes of democracy, people that are just willing to do that, often a thankless job, more recently, sometimes contentious jobs. I really appreciate people wanting to do that in a small community. When you know those people, the process, it really builds that idea of trust that we have in our system. And then lastly, again, sticking with elections, thank you to everyone who voted. Over 700 people voted in our elections, and having kind of watched elections over the past, decade here in the borough, my memory that exceeds like our number of people voting by far many of the previous election. And so really appreciate everybody's interest in that. Like it was kind of like, right, I'm actually riding along now. Some financial information and update. We'll talk about kind of budget revision stuff later. Do you want to highlight that we have received an update on our insurance claim related to the fraud and cybercrime? Our insurers gave us the actual amounts that they're going to pay. And so between our insurers and sub-insurers, there are 3 different companies that carry various policies with us. And the delay is them coordinating with each other you know, how much each one pays as a percentage of this policy and claim. So they all had to like talk amongst themselves before they're able to say, this group's gonna pay us this much, and this much, and this much. And yes, as we predicted at the very start of this, we are paying our $2,500 deductible. That is what we will be on. We're being held whole for the rest of that plan, a little bit over $100,000. When we receive those funds, we will then pay the actual vendor. We'll do it in a way to make sure that they get the money. And so we're really lucky. It was a scary lesson for us, but it was a good lesson. It's also a lesson that we share with other districts and other entities to really continue to watch and be extra vigilant when you get those requests to change payment pathways. That was ultimately kind of what happened here. We are lucky being almost completely covered. Again, there was a similar event at a school district in Connecticut that I shared with the district about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it was just an incredible amount. And again, through this similar type of spear phishing attack of outside source, tracking emails, finding information there, and very seamlessly represent themselves as. Rena also mentioned our receipt of the forestry rent. That's about $54,000. That's a nice piece of revenue. It helps us kind of shift and change that overall financial picture. And also when we get there, we'll talk a little bit about something that we'll probably do focused on Anderson, kind of using that money back at that location. Facilities, there are a lot of things that I do want to kind of mention. We've received the initial list for the major school maintenance grant program. We have good news for the Tri-Valley Loop project. We are project number 4 on that list. We would need aggregate funding of the capital budget of $13 million for that program, and that would fund our reimbursement. That would then allow us to move forward and start looking at other capital projects with our current CIP fund. We're not in a position to take on a future project. Our other projects that we submitted, the district-wide electrical upgrade and the Tri-Valley septic replacement are much farther down on the list. We would need over $100 million funded into that program. I don't think that's very likely this legislative session. The 13 million, I think, is a figure that's likely to be approved. And I noticed, if I'm remembering, project 5, 6, and 7 are all from the Anchorage School District. So we could see some friendly advocacy down in Juneau supporting a figure that would include those projects from a lot of legislators who come from the Anchorage area. So that could help kind of buoy us up. Update on the Tri-Valley generator upgrade. And if we recall, the borough received a grant to pay for 1/2 of this generator project. This would install a containerized generator that the right size and let us wire it and power all of Tri-Valley, specifically all of our key components like electrical systems that would man things like pumps to be able to transfer heat from one end of the school to the other in the event of a power outage. The borough at the recent meeting also considered appropriation ordinance, which I believe passed, which appropriated monies from the borough for the remainder of that project. Once that's all processed, we can then do that order and get that generator actually being built for us, and then deposit that in $75,000. So all the funding of that right now is scheduled to come from the grant or from direct borough funds, not from district funds. Very appreciative of all the work that the borough did securing that grant, providing the additional funds. Seeing at Tri-Valley, the strobe light that had been disconnected during the project has been reconnected at no cost to us, so that system is fully operational. Another Tri-Valley thing and borough thing, the borough will be introducing an ordinance to provide funding for 1/2 of the Siemens HVAC control system, so we can update those panels, upgrade the software control programs that operates those, where we would be providing the remainder of those funds from operating funds. We are in a position to be able to do that, to get that project taken care of. We've been talking about that 2 or 3 years. So we'll be happy to have that. Vehicles, I do want to mention that we were almost all done with cycling our vehicles into Seekins and having worked on the initial recall, and Ford issued another recall for the vehicles. this one concerns the brake system. And we have to wait for them to get the parts at Seekins for us to then schedule and have that repair made. We talked with Seekins and said, okay, tell us what it is. Tell us how to monitor the vehicles. So every couple of weeks, we're able to monitor the vehicles and specifically look for the conditions that they've told us, so we can monitor that and to pull any vehicle before that system has a chance to respond. So it's a great system. Vehicles are safe. We're monitoring it with the guidance from Ford, so we'll be aware and pull those vehicles. Before the meeting, I took a walk through some parts of Cantwell because we are still down the heat exchanger for one of the heating systems here in Cantwell. And either during break or after the meeting, you want to walk over to the southern end of the school, and you'll see those rooms are cooler. We have electric space heaters in there. We try to keep the heat up. We have a lot more of the doors open, so that there's moving around. We're fortunate that it's not extremely cold here, because, as I said, our backup heating systems at Cantwell are the other heating units, as opposed to a backup system that heats the entire building, like we actually have at Tri-Valley with cold boiler and oil boilers. Yeah, lucky to have backup systems. If I remember forever, there's like 2 boilers. So if one goes down, you turn on focus up. Here we just have 6 or 7 completely different disconnected heating units. Other thing that's unfortunate with Cantwell, when I was here, was it 2 weeks ago, the hot water heater started just leaking. And so our maintenance worker, Shane, disconnected it, turned off the circuit breakers to the pumps and stuff that are around it, just the tank itself broke. It was an older tank. And we thought, hey, this looks like a pretty straightforward connection. We get this, it's about 120 gallon water tank. We've placed 3 different orders with 3 different companies for a replacement tank. And after we place the order, then the company contacts us and cancels. So at this point, we've actually ordered a kind of standard residential size water heater, 40 to 50 gallon heater, that should arrive hopefully tomorrow, so we can get it installed as soon as we can. So sometime next week, we'll have the water heater installed to have hot water for the school, while we still look for 120 gallons. For the size of our student population, a 40 gallon tank would provide us the ability to wash dishes, those types of things, an occasional shower. But if you think of a school, 20 or 30 kids or summer usage and those types of things, where like a group of people doing a series of showers, we do need that larger tank, because that's what's right sized for the building, reduce the capacity. And we need to reestablish that within the system, but we can't delay hot water. Saying in addition to everything else, if you want hot water, that's water on the stove. That's not sustainable.
Then the lights were out for a hot minute period.
Well, apparently the power went out for a little bit. Luckily, I guess Shane was able to turn it back on because we didn't have lighting. Another thing that's of a concern at Tri-Valley that we still have some additional investigation to do is that the girls' bathroom by the library blocked again. That's the 3rd time, and we've snaked out 120 people that line. We did jet the line out, and it is operational. You're still getting the camera that we have at Anderson that we can run down one. We need to do that very specifically because I'm concerned, especially with the repeated blockage, that there's a collapse in the pipe. And worried if there's a collapse in the pipe, it's under concrete floor in the library. That's not an easy thing. I doubt it will be on like the 20 feet that has to be oddly outside of our building. It'll probably be pretty soon. And as he knows, we don't have a lot in our city. But good news on a completely different subject. Preschool, 2 pieces of good news. The Department of Education said, yes, we can partner with a private entity. They said, you cannot offload the responsibilities of the school district to a private entity. The responsibilities of operating a public preschool under the expectations for public preschool still reside in the district, but we can enter into agreement with a private entity to help provide those services. The other great news, and you also see it referenced personnel, we were able to conduct interviews and we have a job offer that has been accepted for a preschool director. It was Catherine Stone, who was a school teacher in the city school district. Then for the past several years has worked with Santa Ana Chief Conferences. And has supervised like 8 of their Head Start programs in several different communities, including in very excited to have her on board. We don't have a signed contract yet, so hopefully nothing falls apart between getting signatures with her. We're looking to have her start in January, and the goal for like the remainder of this year will be to design and implement a program so that in the fall we can start having preschool with kids at least on Tri Valley in that community, possibly partnered with UPLC, and Katie would be the lead teacher. We are still waiting for the department. They're continuing their discussion. The key question for us: can one lead teacher supervise preschool at multiple sites? We feel that's an essential thing for them to say yes to, because that allows us cost-effective manner to offer preschool at Anderson, Cantwell, and Tri Valley. Along with this question of like, again, with the cohort of 5, asking the department for leeway to consider what constitutes those 5 students being able to count elementary students in addition to preschool students. We're very excited to have Katie on board with us and really help us move forward with this design. This project is do see that we can have some significant impacts on the impacts for the kids and families. How about using things to highlight from meetings that I had? I had a meeting with Teresa Little, who's the superintendent of the Copper River School District. She had mentioned something at a superintendent's conference, and I followed up with her. And we need to do some bit more follow-up and connect with the actual teacher. But in their district, they are offering next semester a course on Ottoman language and culture. And I'm very excited because they said, yes, your kids can connect in virtually for this. There's no charge because Ottoman is providing that to the Copper River School District. And the way they structure their electives is that they occur during 3 different 2-week periods of time. And so we talked with Maria about it. We're like, hey, we think that there's a great opportunity to connect our kids here in Cantwell with that, possibly with, if not some of our staff members, some community volunteers who also might have a real deep interest in this and really help bridge some of that and really I also want to follow up with Teresa some more, because she and I had a really soft conversation, just kind of sharing concerns about small schools. We have a very small school in Solana, again, with 10 kids verging kind of below 10 kids. And think there might be some opportunities there, again, to talk, if not, like, how do we manage this? And also, like, are there some opportunities that might have some connections? And that's also a district that's gone through some consolidations. And so they would know the concerns that we have and look for ways that have them support those. How can we keep kids engaged and really keep a community grounded attached to our school? The downside, somewhat connected to that, is I also had a meeting with kind of the ongoing minutes that I have to move forward with memberships on a clear Space Force station. And was unfortunately told no. None of our contractors in those areas that our students wanted to work were actually willing to have the student interest. Very kind of sad to see that. I told Mr. Hoffman in Anderson there, I still need to get there and just apologize to his kids directly myself, because I really thought it was a bit more firm. Feel quite bad for that. And Mr. Hoffman and I are kind of thinking that maybe if there's a way of halfway to talk and try to say, again, what opportunity therapy might not be in the area that we really were interested in. Because I just really think if we're able to get kind of student out there at all, that would help people start to see this isn't babysitting. This is kids that want to learn about work and do something, they want to be involved, they want to be engaged. And then it can go. And it's like, try to like, get that first. Get that first. So, bit of a deep breath, pause, and really try to come. One thing that came up when I was at the ASB conference, and again, was echoed superintendent's that I was in today. Many of you were at the ASB conference as well. The discussion there focused on advocacy with our state legislators, and ASB settled on a resolution for the Scribble Association, necessarily report, but the association as a whole across the state, specifically putting a number of increase that they want to the base student allocation, and increasing that from $5,960, increasing it by $1,650, basing that on a national inflation rate of 6.16, and is a significant increase to ask for. In the superintendent's conversation that we had at the conference, and again today, a lot of us were looking and saying, what BSA increase would we need to maintain a status quo budget? Like not to expand operations, not to detract from operations, but just a continuation. Take the same program and do it next year. And those figures and those conversations I was having with the administrators, there were people saying, you know, if I don't have 1,700, I'm laying people off. Like it wasn't even a question. Other people were saying, well, I don't need that much, but I've already, Ketchikan already reduced their teaching positions by over 10% because they didn't have any money. So like, yeah, we don't need as much because we already cut. And another district saying, if I don't get it, I'm going to be cutting 10%. That is the size of the increase across the state that's really needed to maintain the educational system that we have. Before we get into the trying to make up for the lost investment over the period of time, that's investments in facilities, investments in staff, investments in programs, investment in people to deliver those programs. Many districts have capacity. So I think be kind of just aware of that figure that was talked about at the ASB conference is, I think it's a pretty solid figure around the state. And it seemed like the superintendent's association might be able to match with the same figure and be working to, again, identify and provide information to the legislators. This is why it's not a, oh, we're gonna, you know, make heated swimming pools, we can't. This is what we need to be involved in. Also want to mention that on Monday of this week, on the 13th, I did attend my first meeting of the Public Education Health Trust. I was selected to be on the board of directors. I see formally says on January 1st. So this is my first meeting working with that entity. That's our insurance company. I understand while I'm working as a board member of their board of directors, I actually serve with fiduciary responsibilities to that entity. And I have to kind of step aside from the interest that I have for the school district. But again, that's comfortable with for me doing that, considering that the purpose and mission of that entity, high quality insurance at a low price. They're focused on how do you deliver a great product at a great price. Now, that's what I want in an insurance company. When I sit down as the superintendent, I want a high quality insurance product at the best price that I can get. So that's getting the most cost effective way to help our district employees. So can't share a lot of details of some of those conversations. But it is focused on it, also on that overarching focus and intentions. One thing I do want to mention that wasn't in my report, just something to be aware of, part of kind of an improved cycle of feedback that we want to do after some stuff last year is we'll be sending out our internal surveys in the next couple of weeks. And these are the surveys that we send out to our older students and say, let's, provide comments and feedback to the teachers, principals, on the school, again, surveys of parents, comments and feedback to specific teachers at the school, also opportunity to provide feedback, to principals, superintendents. These are internal surveys. They're not the school climate and connectedness survey. It's an internal survey. We take those, we look at them administratively. We also then use those in lots of conversations with staff look at and see those as well. And then we'll also repeat these surveys again in this window. So we're doing this twice, where traditionally we try to do it once a year.
And I had a question about the surveys. You said the older students, what age does that go down to?
No, I was honestly, as I said, I'm trying to remember, there was just kind of like one of those, I know we don't send it to kindergarten. And so I'm trying to remember if we like send down like those schools. Like, 5, 6. And then the school climate and connectedness survey does have a survey geared towards grades 3 through 5 with a bit simpler questions. And with that one, we'll also include surveys.
Right, so adding the family survey to the school climate and connectedness. And families and staff will also be receiving these internal surveys. The other question I had was the Stampede Road additional bus stop. Thank you for that on behalf of residents of Stampede that asked. Can you remind me of where it is and why it's starting in FY25?
Yes, at the intersection Stampede and then one of the reasons that FY25 asked the families that have requested, I said, okay, that's the one question. So you're going to use it. Because if you're not going to use it, we're impacting that first student on the first kid that gets on the bus. If we're not going to use it, and I sent the two families a message, and they sent one back saying we talked about it. Said we've sorted out our stuff, and they said we hear them, value it, really appreciate it. We've sorted ourselves out. Next year there'll be a couple more kids that age into school. They said, well, we started next year. And I said, that's great, let's do that. I still need to circle back to Sterling with DOT to let him know and make sure he's aware that we'll start that stuff. He would say you wanted to just know that this is this additional work they could just be aware of that. So the thing I like this is that let's maybe drive out there again with our buses in the winter time and take a look at it. It's not a great location for a stop because you're still kind of at the top of the hill on a turn. And it gets, so there's these concerns of vehicles and stuff up there. We also shared with families. And we'll do some design, we might flip like the order of the lignite leg and the Stampede leg to give a bit more time for the driver to judge those road conditions and specifically saying, and we're going to empower the driver to stop at a pullout and call and cancel that stop when needed that day. Because the concern is as you get out to the end of Stampede and get even more exposed, we've only got like one turnaround. We've got one turnaround and it's I remember about a mile past it. And so there's some risk there. And so when we drove that, I drove it in the bus with a transportation manager and a driver that way. And so we were talking and kind of troubleshooting things. Even like, should we pick them up on the up? Should we wait on them? Do it on the down? Like trying to think what's the best, safest way to arrange that. One of the things was the concern of in a weather event, in particular, you get out there and you don't get sick. And you don't have kind of an extra opportunity. So he said, okay, make the call. And so there'll be sometimes kind of, which is unusual for us to say, we're simply not doing that. Stop. We're generally sure that you're trying to get them. Because we don't want something. And that's the thing. Stop safely and call so that we don't have to just stand.
That's cool.
Another question, so we're here at Cantwell Building, is there a heating system on any CIP list anytime soon to like redo it and give it a backup?
No, because you'd be reconstructing. I mean, you really would be, because the school was built kind of in pieces as the community and school grew, like a different heating unit was put in to heat the new section. And then the new section, so there's no ductwork through the school. So it's not like, oh, we need a new boiler, or hey, let's put in a secondary backup one that feeds into that ductwork or into the hydronic system to move glycol. We don't have those here. We have like 6 different zones, but each of those zones is run by its own individual system.
Maybe this is just a gentle reminder, do you ever approve the younger age range for the, for the preschool? I know we had talked about that, and if you remember, we had
It turns out they're still discussing that.
Okay.
Initially, I thought they'd said, well, apply for a waiver. And the question is, they say a preschool has to have 5 4-year-olds. We don't have 5 4-year-olds, we count 3-year-olds. And we said, well, can we count kindergartners, first grade? Because then I think we quite possibly have a preschool opportunity here at Cantwell and Anderson. And the most recent meeting we had, they said, we're still talking. And these questions are ones, again, that I think we asked first, but are impacting districts across the state that serve small communities. And they're starting, I think the department is trying to find a way to say yes under the constraints of the law. The law was crafted, they have to follow the law. And if they can't find the room, they're trying to find some advocacy steps to implement this. That would support preschool. Not yet. I keep telling them, take all the time you need to say yes.
There you go. And maybe this is totally out of line for one of my maintenance, but if we can't get a big enough water heater here, I don't know what the situation is, but it's an opportunity because it's water heaters really good, or is that?
Possibly, you could also possibly look at installing like 2 or some of the things. Right now, it was a standard residential heater isn't super expensive,
Right,
so that's not.
right. I just talking about the needs later on and kind of how that technology, but no, we're the maintenance guy, so anyway, it's just a thought.
It's also nice to just kind of go, the plumbing's a lot easier to do for us.
Dan? Just going back to that school bus stop, you said you did a test run on it?
Yeah, we rode out there. The snow hadn't fallen yet. But we did ride out there. I was out there with Susan Reeves, transportation manager.
Okay.
Right.
The reason why I'm asking, do you plan on doing another test out there this winter?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I really want to see it in this full.
Okay.
I know from my just personal experience driving out on Stampede, and I only go out a couple times a year. That snow makes it narrower. We'll see how the plowing has affected things. It'll be good to really look at it in the conditions that we're most worried about.
Okay.
And I think in conversation with the families out there, we're projecting 6 students. Yeah, picked up. That's fine.
Thank you, Dan.
Any other questions?
Just a clarification on the pre-K age discussion, so it,
those elementary students, if the agrees that it would be possible, those 5 and 6 counting, those 5 and 6-year-olds, they would be not double counted.
No, they wouldn't double count it, but they would simply allow us to have a preschool,
Stand up.
because the
Right.
preschool by law has to have 5 students.
You just not count them in the enrollment.
No, we just need 5, so that in a sense, we need 5 to say we have a preschool, and then when we count students, we count the first grader, the 2 kindergartners. You count the 4-year-old as half a student, because that's the law. And maybe the 3-year-old as half a student. And that we get our cohort of 5, but at no point do you double count, because you're counting those, you add those then into your other grades as well for your total school. You need 5 in the group to kind of be able to count them all. They're very good at not double.
I think so, yeah. And I noticed in Karen's report, she had indicated, and I can't find the citation now, but I just noted it, a review of world language instruction at all the school sites. And one of the considerations was looking into opportunities to learn about Alaska Native languages. So I'm wondering if your engagement with Copper River School District was out those discussions or?
Not at all.
Oh,
Disconnected.
okay.
It was at the superintendent's conference. One of the things we did, we just went around, shared like a success. And when Teresa from Copper River stood up, I heard, on the language and culture classes, and I was like, what? We need it. Like, yes, there too, please.
Yeah.
And it just took a document.
Well, it makes me wonder what other school districts, how other school districts are standing up similar programs. Operation is paying for it. It's been an AASB recommendation since the late 90s for the state to fund language learning programs for less than 70 days. It's pretty exciting development.
I'm at the point that even if like our kids hate it, I'm like, just open it up for community volunteers. And I bet we have people.
Goyan Corporation does have language learning programs online as well.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Dan. Move on to our old business. Lauren, could you lead us in 9A, please?
Yes.
I move to adopt the second and final reading of the listed board policies as presented. Policies discussed and recommended for a board discussion of the board. Policies with recommended changes. Can I just say the numbers?
Yeah, let's.
BB 9110, BP 5113, BP 5121, BP 5123, 5127, 5131.41, 5131.42, reviewed policies, BP 5121.1, 5121.2, 5125, 5125.1, 5125.2, 5125.3, 5131, 5131.1, 5131.4, new policies of EP 5128.
Second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes.
Well, I want to just kind of circle back to policy 51, 13, is absences and excuses, that has kind of a shift in language from excused, not excused, to school sanction, not sanction. And wanted to let you know that I did talk to them about that, and they are supportive of our changes. They understand kind of that desire and the benefits of moving to proactive and positive relationship with parents with discussing absences and impacts, and avoiding a confrontational prosecutorial stance. They did say, but there's this report you have to do, and you still need to put those in these two boxes. And I said, yes, I know that. I just need to be able to have policy, let's me have that constructive conversation. They said, they also say, hey, contact a couple of the districts that went through some similar work. And then we also had like a real good conversation also about there's a rule that the department has about automatically dropping students after a period of absences. We talked through some of those scenarios and how we manage that under the policies. And they're supportive of our practices. So the rule says you must unenroll somebody if there are 10 unexcused absences in a row. And we said, well, let's be honest, this is what we do. And someone says, hey, my boss gave me 2 weeks off. And I'm sorry, it doesn't align with school vacation. We're taking our vacation, or we've gone for 2 weeks. We do not unenroll that child. We know the child's with their parents, they're safe. They've talked to us about the absences. We know this. We can list this as parent sanction and not unenrolling them and create immediately a competition. And they went, okay. And we just kind of affirmed that we're not playing shenanigans with this, that the parent has not communicated with us, that we do drop that child from our roles after these. We do that with our students, we do that potentially with people families if we have lack of contact with them.
Dan, have they had more interest in this policy or these regulations with the attention on chronic absenteeism? Not necessarily.
Not to my knowledge. But it seems like I tend to ask them odd and challenging questions. There was, I think, a third issue a while back and it gave a list of questions. Those are really good. It's been months of them. Just says they kind of simple for themselves.
Edit to that new board policy 5120. And this is the final reading? No.
Yes.
Yes. So I think it'll. Yeah. Yes, but it has to do with the one's ability to understand the meaning of the sentence. So it's in the third paragraph, starts with second sentence. Students will be provided an opportunity to challenge and error in the eligibility determination. It's my fault. And
Just one.
yep, just that there. Yep. So 5 minutes.
I would look for that. We already could even ask any objections to it.
Any objections?
What policy were you talking about?
5128.
The new. About the last performance scholarship. Objections? It's fine. Any other discussion before? Right, then Jennifer, a roll call vote, please.
Salix,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Christie. Yes. Kristen. Yes. Jenna. Yes. Dawn.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes.
Lauren.
Yes.
James.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Do you need for a break before we move on to new business? like to keep rolling. All right, we'll move on to 10A. Dawn, you want to take this?
I move to approve the board minutes of October 19th, 2023.
Second, point of order, we're not introducing the minute. I'm sorry.
Next time. So. Have a second.
I think Lauren said that.
I move to amend the minutes to include the list of policies that received the first reading under the new business.
Second.
Second. So in past minutes, we've included all of the board policies. I mean, our minutes are very tight, and that's fine. I like them that way. But I do think that when we introduce policies, we should include them in both the first reading and the second reading as a record. The board's actions. So I'm asking to amend the minutes to include those policies and then we vote on approving the amended minutes.
Any other discussion?
Is it just the cycle or is there a lot of violence happening at school?
The policies. I think
It's
it's
a policy cycle. Just the cycle.
Yeah, it's
Just
just over.
like. Quite concerning, not a reaction.
That's funny.
Good question. Just making sure.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, Jennifer, roll call, vote, please, upon the amended policy.
Ryan,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Kristen. Yes. Lauren,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Jenna. Brett,
Yes.
James.
Yes. Amendment passes unanimously. Back to the original motion as amended, unless there's any other discussion. Do a roll call on this as well, Jennifer.
Don,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Kristen. Yes. Brett,
Yes.
Jenna. Yes. James.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Jenna, could you lead us in business item 10B, please?
This is the policies. Okay. I move to adopt the first reading of the list of board policies and advance them to a second reading at the next board meeting. Board policy 5131.5, vandalism, theft and graffiti. Board policy 5131.6, alcohol and other drugs. Board policy 5131.9, honesty. 5131.43, harassment and intimidation. Those are the ones with recommended changes, and then the reviewed policies are board policy 5131.7, instruments, board policy 5131.8, school sponsored trips, policy 5131.62, tobacco, 5131.63, performance enhancing drugs. Second.
Any discussion on this?
I have a whole lot of minor edits. I did go through them all.
Okay, that's
Can be a little cumbersome.
If they're like more grammatical things. They send those to us.
just.
Okay, I will do that then.
So this is all pretty boilerplate stuff. Okay.
Pretty much nothing with like significant changes in meetings, updates. Is interesting in the academic honesty policy updates, actually taking recommendation from the ASB that includes some updates to artificial intelligence. And try to put some language in, basically saying, this is this new tool. We need to not be afraid of using it, but we do need to acknowledge when it's being used. which is a key thing with academic is simply like even when we think of writing a research paper was the citations and stuff like. But John Smart person wrote this, and you put a reference to it, whether it's in quotes or where you got the little piece of information from. It's kind of like that same expectation used AI to assist in polishing something that you're doing, generate something. Again, a basic thing you should be acknowledging. But it is becoming more and more very quickly a tool that people are using to do work. So we need to be able to embrace that both to do our professional work, but then also be able to, as appropriate, teach and model the students how to use it appropriately. So it's interesting kind of when we looked at that and as a conversation with AI, we're like, I wonder if this policy has any language on it. And it does. But it's in the
It's good. Any questions or discussion? We'll call vote on this, Jim.
Jenna? Lauren?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Kristen? Yes. David?
Yes.
James?
Yes. Passes unanimously. Kristen, if you lead us in 10C, please. Receive audit.
I move to receive the FY23 audit.
Second. Want to expand on this a little bit?
Yeah, and I'm ready. I'm going to talk you through the audit. I encourage you to open the document up on your computers. I'll be kind of walking through a bit with a paper copy that I have. I'm actually going to start with the document that ends with the reference LTB, which is letter to the board. It's a fairly thin and small document. It's about 4 pages long. And it's a letter from the auditors to you, the board. And basically it's just outlining like what they did, like kind of the scope of their work. But also includes some aspects of that you need to kind of read and interpret to look for limitations. In terms, they're looking to see if things were done to a reasonable standard. There's in the United States, there's not like really a set like law about how companies or businesses keep books. There are generally accepted accounting practices that are kind of set and established by associations of accountants. But that's different from like in Europe. There's actual laws about most accounting. It's a different system that we have in the US. It also means there can be variations about how accounting practices are done in different organizations. So they're looking and saying like, hey, are things done in a reasonable way? The other thing that they're doing is saying, kind of starting to use language and hinting at things like, hey, we didn't find anything that was, quote, material. Meaning they might have found like maybe smaller mistakes or something, but nothing that was of like a significant concern. And they'll use phrases like that, like material, or this action was reasonable. But part of that's, they're looking at some information, but they're not looking at every single transaction that any organization does. And so some of the language that they're using is kind of trying to acknowledge their own limitations in terms of just establishing themselves. And that's the letter to, but what you want to do when you read through this is you look for things, if there are any statements that management and administration was unreasonable interactions or there were material issues. Those are the things when you read an audit, you want to look and see, were we reasonable? Was there any material issue? I would say we were reasonable and there was no material issue. We turn to the bigger document and it's the one that ends in F, asks me fiscal statements. And that's what we kind of refer to as the audit. And I'll talk through sections. And I'm just going to start at the beginning and really talk about the first 4 pages, which is the independent auditor's report and is real similar to that letter to the board. It kind of highlights, in a sense, what the auditors did and then what management. And one key thing to look at this, and it's no different this year than any year, is they're going through great lengths to say, as auditors, we looked at financial information that management prepared for us. So everything that they're telling you is based on information that we have. Okay. They also go in to say things like, we didn't find any reason to like doubt the numbers, but ultimately that wasn't the case. So again, it's kind of like a bit of them saying, don't blame us, yeah. But they're looking at information that we gave them. They did some things that provided us with information. We relied on them a lot to say, well, how do you want us sometimes to show you this information? What's the right format? Even to the point of you want us to show accounting done this way. Okay? So we do some of those changes within our books, not to alter, did we make a payment to receive funds from anywhere, but simply to record it. That basically the appropriately recorded is like this. And as long as that switch wasn't material to anything, we just made that switch. And they said, okay, great, now we'll actually look at it. So sometimes there's a little back and forth between auditors and management. Sometimes mid-year we'll call them and say, hey, we're going to record a transaction. How do you think we should do it? It's something new we haven't done or seen. You know, tell us how to do it. Hopefully they'll tell us to change that same one later, but sometimes that happens too. When we get a little bit farther, and if you look and kind of move to page 5, and we're moving into the basic financial statements, pages 5 through 12 are basic financial statements. And it includes things like your kind of basic statement of position, which on page 5 shows you your assets, liabilities for the year. And in accounting speak, your assets always equal your liabilities. So if you look at that, about halfway through the year, you see assets of a little bit over $10 million. Look down lower and you go, liabilities, $10 million. Accounting, you're always kind of balanced and even on that. Makes a lot of sense to accountants. Still doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's the standard thing. It lets you look and it lets you look kind of look for those changes in terms of what it is. The next couple of pages actually would suggest or recommend you turn forward to page 9 as a good page to look at in terms of it gives you information along the lines kind of with the framings that we often talk about our monies. Page 9 is showing us the revenue and expenses of our major fund. And so you'll see different lines. Sorry for that. This is your attorney will be joining us in executive session, just letting you know the timing. And his entire neighborhood just lost power. It's okay. I can talk you through that section too. But on page 9, you see kind of that column that shows operating funds. And you see kind of like starting to see kind of like a budget as we see a budget categories. And then we see major funds also for that. We see some monies in the capital fund, and the state and our auditors look at the projects that we have under the capital fund as standalone funds. So you see a line for the Anderson Root Fund because we received payment for that this year, and then the Tri-Valley Root Fund because we made payments for that this year. The other governmental funds, those are all the grant programs that we receive. Each of those grant programs is considered its own fund with its own need to account for monies in that program as standalone monies. Your question? Okay. If you take a look and move over to page 12, another kind of aspect of the audit that's kind of a nice thing to see is it also reports on what are referred to as custodial funds. And these are the funds that we hold in a sense for a sub-entity. Our student activities, both like maybe Cantwell activity fund or like a specific fund kind of as a something like a specific sports team might have a kind of sub-line within that. The district holds all those funds, and so there's an accounting and verification of that every year, so that those funds, if it is held by the Cantwell Activity Fund or the Tri-Valley Activity Fund, still show up on our audit, and we can see those here, where in a sense we're holding those for those entities of ours. But it is kind of considered money that you shouldn't use for other purposes because it was really dedicated. That's why they were addressed custodian. You should not use those. The next section, so pages 13 through 40, those are notes to the financial statement. So this is kind of like supporting documentation for those pages 5 through 12. And it includes like definitions. For several pages of definitions. It also has sub-calculations. So you can look in there and you can see a sub-calculation of the capital assets that the district has. You can see sub-calculations of debts that we've taken on, such as our leases. Also, we consider debt meaning pension on behalf payments or on behalf obligations that we have for pension programs that we've been in. So you see sub-calculations for that. Always riveting is something that I like to always draw attention to, pages 25 through 40. This is information on the state retirement systems and very specifically information on the underfunding of those retirement systems. Legacy retirement systems that people like myself who started working in the state of Alaska prior to 2006, the financial obligations that the state generated, they designed and committed everybody to, there's not enough funds in those trust funds to make those projected payments. And pages 25 through 40 kind of talk through this whole thing. It's this idea of the state has this challenge, and because some of those employees are your employees, it says, well, actually the challenge is yours. And so there's a financial obligation that the district has to help those funds become whole again. And since 2014 through now, the state has been making those additional payments on your behalf. So every once in a while there's some conversation, so just some reminders when we talk about advocacy of Juneau, that we want to make sure the state continues to make those on behalf payments to properly fill that retirement fund that they designed. They controlled the amounts that went into it. They directed the companies that made the investments. They settled a lawsuit with the actuarials who said the advice they received was wrong and settled that lawsuit pennies on the dollar. They settled what it was a month. So very interesting information just about the financial standing that shows up in all of our audits. And it takes many, many of these pages because it comes up in other places as well. And this was just pages 25 through 40. If you turn to page 41, we see the operating budget again, but we see it in another degree of clarity. So if you wanted to see each of like the basic kind of line items that we talk about, structure, and see it broken down into greater detail, you can start to see that in these pages. Actually, no, the greater detail comes a little bit later. This adds some more detail, breaks it down even more following pages. On this page, we start to be able to see that overall revenue that we have. And looking at our operating fund of about $9.5 million, and our expenses of about $9.5 million. Overall surplus or deficit with a fund balance at the bottom of this page. And big things to remember when looking at this page is that it does not designate the fund balance into any sort of dedicated expense, whether that's an encumbrance, meaning something we've already contracted to pay for, or any of our kind of dedicated reserves. It says, here's this fund balance that doesn't consider what's been dedicated or restricted. That's why I'm happy to see a fund balance over $3 million. Where the fund balance we talk about through this audit is one. There are other things that encumber or secure that fund balance. So if you look at this page, the financial page in previous audits, you see the same pattern. Pages 42 to 49 is about retirement systems. If they ever fix that, you have a much thinner audit. Starting on page 54 is when we see the further layer of detail. So again, if we think very start, we had kind of very surface level, mid level, now greater level of detail just on the financial aspects. So about halfway through the page, you see the line of instruction being broken down into more categories: certificated salaries, non-certificated salaries, and so on and so forth. It breaks down each of our main budget categories in those subcategories. You end up again with the greater detail of all of it. So then on page 54, you start to see a reporting of each of the major funds. So page 57, you see the capital fund. Page 58 is related to just Tri-Valley Roof Replacement Fund, Anderson Roof Replacement Fund. Then you start seeing, starting on page 60, each of the grants identified and tracked as its own fund and expense, because it has to follow the rules for each of those grants. Page 78 is a good page to look at, and it's a good page to look at like between audits as well. This page, it's in every audit, gives you a 5-year history of kind of the finances of the district, and lets you look and say, well, how's revenue tracked over the past 5 years? How have expenses tracked over the past 5 years? How have there been transfers in and out, meaning transfers to reserve funds that have come in or transfers that we move out to those funds? And then overall looking at those changes in fund balance. Again, that's without any encumbrances or anything else taken from us. And so you can see kind of like that revenue expenses, revenue 2019 was about $10.5 million. See mild increases through to 2021. And then expenses, again, a little bit over $10 million. Went a little bit above 10 million. And then 2023, about 9 million. So you see kind of like just some mild fluctuations of that. And you see kind of that contraction when we did this. Very important page is, if you look at the next page, page 79. This is the fund balance with the encumbrances. And this is an important figure because by the end of FY25, the calculation that's shown on that page, fund balance needs to be below 10%. It's page 79. Tells us the total operating fund balance, and then able to exclude encumbrances, inventories, things prepaid, correspondence and office. So they say, hey, we're really dedicated to specific things within even that. It's not necessarily sitting in what they would consider that special fund. So it's excluded from the carryover that we talk about. Then they show you that calculation, so you're able to see that audited figure of 1.4 million that we now include the financial information for the start of the year. And the overall calculation, 15. We need to look at that figure to below 10% by the end of next year. It also puts you in a good position to actually move forward with an FY25 budget that is not dependent upon a large increase. If you're going to be able to use that and move forward with the budget, that really is something that we're going to as we see experience, as opposed to running into the past years. I thought would be probably 3 or 4 years. Page 82. Again, kind of like pages that I look for. I look for like that 5-year one. I look for that one on what's the carryover. Page 82 is kind of the language part of compliance. It's really when the auditors are going to start saying, did we do things right or not? And they will talk about page 82, talk about our internal goals. We need are the checks and balances that we have in place within the business department, who approves things, who signs things, how many people are involved in transactions. Are those controls reasonably sufficient and reasonably follow to likely with that. And then basically, they didn't see anything that was wrong. But they were looking, but they didn't see anything. And part of their looking is they do ask for samples, and so they'll ask for specific transactions. That they do. They'll look at specific employee files, so they can check payroll for a handful of employees, but they don't check. And they look for, did you make mistakes here? Did you make mistakes there? Did you not make mistakes? So they use that testing to try to see how well our controls and procedures work. And so, yeah, this is reasonable. We didn't find anything that. Page 84 does the same thing, but then does it for each state program. Says, hey, there are internal controls. Now we say, hey, for each of those big things, operating fund, all those grant funds. Were the actions reasonable? Were there any material issues? It was reasonable. There was nothing material. The easy to read page that tells you that is on page 87. It's the chart. And it's like in the audit, if you only ever look at one, you look at this and you look and see what's on this chart. Because what you're looking for is an unmodified audit, meaning the changes and the corrections that they were asking, that's not something that they didn't have to really do anything to fix it. And then there were no significant deficiencies in it. There were no material weaknesses in it. There were no issues of non-compliance with material deficiencies. You know, and then the same thing with internal controls. You want to be considered a low risk audit, which means you have a history of good audits. You do. And then in writing in section 2 on this page, you want to see the statement. Now, the school district do not have any findings do not have any findings related to the statement. I think that's really good. You just have to always read in the language of the audience. They never say it's good. They're just like, we didn't find it. But their job wasn't to look for it. It's not a forensic accounting. You're saying that the various things trying to think of the specific trail wrong. They're looking to see where the internal controls appropriate. Does it seem like everything is being done the way it's supposed to be? Is everything being recorded the way it's supposed to be? Is everything being reported the way it's supposed to be? They said, yes, we can do this. Questions?
Regulations, does a copy of this report automatically go to the filling auditor?
I'm not sure who sends it. I don't think it's automatic, other than it might be part of the auditor's job and the contracts that we do. We do have to supply them, and I think we also provide a copy to the board. Yeah, we're considered a component unit of the borough, and so this audit is part of their audit.
Any other questions?
Congratulations. Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
I worked really hard making sure that Rena was able to do that.
Congratulations.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr.
Brett,
Yes.
Don? Yes. Brian?
Yes.
Kristen? Yes. Christie? Yes. Jenna? Yes. Baylor?
Yes.
Lauren? Yes. Jane?
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Christie, could you lead us into executive session?
I move to go into executive session in order to discuss a matter, tentative collective bargaining agreements for which deliberative records are not subject to public disclosure.
Second. Roll call vote, please, Jen.
Jenna? Yes. Kristen? Yes. Don? Yes. Christie?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Baylor?
Yes.
Lauren? Yes. Brian?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes. Passes unanimously. Are we going somewhere there?
I'm going.
Okay.
You're going.
Peace party.
Yes, Brett,
Your sound went way down.
We're not connected to the main thing yet.
oh. No, good.
How's our sound now, Brett? I don't think you can hear us yet.
Okay, I can now.
Okay, keep talking a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, but we got to fix now the speaker.
Try again, Brett.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Much better.
There we go.
Go.
Brett,
We're doing a roll call vote to come out of executive session, Brett.
Oh, yes.
Christie,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Jenna, John, yes, Kristen, yes, James,
Yes, motion passes unanimously. We're back in regular session. And Ryan, could you lead us in 10E, please?
I move to ratify the tentative agreement between DBSD and DEA covering fiscal years 2024 through 2026.
second,
Any further discussion? All right, a roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
John,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Kristen, yes, Jenna, yes, Brett,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
James,
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Brett, could you lead us in 10F, please?
I move to approve the FY24 budget revisions as presented.
Wait, we're still on the tentative agreement for DESPA. It might have. I had to update mine. To get it, I think when we added A, it needed to be refreshed, but if you could just lead us in the tentative agreement with DESPA.
Sure. Let's see. I move to ratify the tentative agreement between DBSD and DESPA covering fiscal years 2024 through 2026.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
yes, Kristen, yes, Brett,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jenna, yes, David,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
James,
Yes, motion passes unanimously. All right, circle back around. Lauren, could you lead us in 10G, please? Budget revision.
I move to approve the FY24 budget revision as presented.
second,
And then if you could make a motion to amend.
I move to amend the FY24 budget revision by substitution to include the provisions of the ratified agreements between DBSD and DEA and DESA.
second,
Any discussion on this? Yes, Tim.
I'll walk you through kind of a little bit more detail, the changes to the FY 24 budget. And Rena shared some of these kind of broad strokes when she went through those monthly totals. By incorporating the tentative agreements, change that deficit picture that Rena shared, because that was done with the contracts that existed at that time. You now have new contracts that are in effect for this year. So with the budget revision, and Jennifer is kind of switching that, and putting the updated document into public comments. Board members can see that right now in executive comments for the FY 24 budget revisions. Detailed revenue expenditure with the TPAs. Yeah. On the revenue side, you have several adjustments from the approved budget from last February. It includes the provision of one-time funding. So that went through with the state. That's a little bit of an estimate because we're still in the process of that final enrollment. So that set amount of money is going to be distributed kind of on a prorated basis across the state based on district's final adjusted enrollment. This also incorporates our adjusted enrollment for FY 24. So we see submitted and calculated with Tri-Valley of 50 students, Kentland at 10, Anderson at 12. Peak, the budget right now is built on 700 students because oftentimes we have some duplicate kids in Peak. We've submitted about 725 kids in Peak, and based on the duplicates and then like our submission of kind of documentation to try to verify and correct those duplicates, we do see likelihood of coming in with Peak at 720 kids. So we could see a little bit of increase in revenue later based on that once that gets kind of trued up. And I actually think the absolute final gets done and set in stone happens in January. Reconciliation process determination. We also have a reduction in the number of students with intensive needs. The students do have a funding mechanism specific in the foundation for that helps districts provide for their supports for students that have that meet those qualifications. We've applied for consideration of 3 such students. Our budget was built on 4, so that has a reduction to it. It also includes the formal addition of the 2 grants we received this year. Those are early learning, also known as preschool grant of over $600,000, and also the supplemental grant on the statewide comprehensive literacy development program. That was about $200,000. It also includes the forest students of about $55,000. The expenses, it has adjustments. It includes all of the future and retroactive aspects of the tentative agreements for this year and adds those costs in for both the contracts. It also includes like all the staffing changes that we've had from the February budget approval through. That is a couple of small, like additional kind of like reductions that we were able to make at the staffing levels, but also changes in personnel. So we create the budget based on the existing personnel that have signed contracts, accepting those contracts for next year, saying everyone's going to stay in place. There is some shifts with some people leaving, some people coming in. So there are different salary and wage replacements on scales, often a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher. And there's also different election of benefits. A single person might have left, but someone that takes family insurance comes in. You know, that it's kind of same guarantee. You and your dependents get insurance. It's a very different financial impact and cost to the district to provide. So it has all those changes in personnel. It has changes if someone just made an election to decline insurance that they've accepted from us in the past, or to through a qualifying event accept insurance from us that they've declined from us before. There's adjustments in the peak student allotment based on the actual enrollment of kids. There are different allotment sizes based on certain grade levels. So this trues that up for all of our students. As Rena mentioned, it's just fees for our transportation services this year. There's a small adjustment into the lease and costs for our peak offices. A big reduction is in the funds that we set aside in the budget for the purchase of peak student computers. We've talked about that, how that was based on having an increasing enrollment. What we see instead is that stable enrollment. So we had far less continues to purchase, as a pretty significant downward adjustment. We also have some adjustments in where we are looking to make that purchase or contribution towards the upgrade of the Siemens control panel. That we've talked about, that's budgeted in half of that total cost. And then also looking at a vehicle purchase and really trying to kind of mentally at least assign that came into the Anderson. So like, we need a plow vehicle in Anderson. And regardless of, frankly, regardless of forestry or not, we need a vehicle that can plow and keep access to that school building. Remember last year, really burnt out the transmission, so our plow truck would go for about 10 minutes at a time. Takes a long time to plow a parking lot. You can only operate that plow truck. So this would, budget would let us make that purchase, which allows us to keep the school open and help us avoid contract services and have control of that other costs. Overall, with all these adjustments, you do have an operating budget of about $200,000, which would reduce a little bit your unrestricted carryover. I also think that this budget, we'll talk about it as next item, puts you in a position that could consider a continuation budget with the rest of this carryover fund to be in a position where we're not looking to further reduce student services and having meaningful conversations with staff about not being able to continue their services with us. I really think promising that this budget revision is also a structure that can continue to move forward for us.
Questions? We're ready for a roll call vote on the amendment.
Brett,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Kristen? Yes. Christie?
Yes.
Jenna? Yes. David?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes, motion passes. Back to the original motion, unless there's any additional discussion. Do a roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
Jenna? Yes. Kristen? Yes. Don?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Salix?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to 10H, and Salix, I didn't mean to skip over you in Zoom land, so if you'd like to lead us in this last item of business under 10, that would be great.
All right. I move to approve the FY25 budget assumptions as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
As I was saying before, I think I'm presenting and asking, suggesting that we move forward with the continuation budget. The budget assumptions are kind of like the basic instructions of the administration kind of suggesting, but then also asking for to say, what type of you want me to look at this? You know, what's the starting point of these for our conversations? We can come back and kind of question or change any of these, but it's just kind of like our starting. And so it has assumptions like that we're going to continue dedicating resources to implement our strategic. I also suggest that we continue to implement resources to support early literacy as guided and directed by the last weeks. Grants right now for that, those are going to fall away, and we're going to need to support those efforts. That's going to have to come from operating. I also think that we should be considering adjustments to the size of our allotments. We found that especially our elementary school allotments were quite competitive with other districts programs. And I think we're losing some opportunity there with students selecting other programs simply because of financial considerations. Staffing assumptions. I am recommending that we maintain the levels of staffing and the distribution between our sites. Assume, as we now have in place, stable staff contracts. And then again, in terms of billing with our projections, it's assumed that our current staff will accept contracts or we are notices and continue with this next year. It allows us to build in those projections as we move forward. On revenue, kind of technical edit, the enrollment we're basing, recommending that these are FY23 OASIS. Update this figures on the writing jumps around in here to state them correctly. It should be FY23 follow OASIS for those figures. And we did take a look at the number of seniors and 4-year-olds in the community, and it does look like our students are set to be stable even with graduations. I do recommend that we build a budget assuming the state will fund us at least at the actual level we received this year. That's $340 above the BSA. I will also do a calculation of how much money is that. So you can see, do you have money in your unrestricted carryover to potentially cover that? If there is no change to the BSA or there is no one, but I do recommend that as like last year, we said we believe the state will fund at least at the level. Understand that is something that needs to have strong advocacy as well, just to make sure we get at least that. You heard me talk earlier this meeting about a $1,650 increase, not just a $340. Borough funding, again, assume that they will, of course, supply the required contribution, but also that they can continue that level of support going up to that 23%. That we would then also on revenue that we would use our literacy grant funds through September 30th, the end of that grant cycle. We would use the supplemental funds through the end of that grant cycle, September 30th. We continue to use our grant funds to develop a preschool program with the goal of having a preschool that's part of the public school and that we're part of our standard enrollment count in FY27. So we have not used dedicated reserves, and we would not be like transferring money from the CIP fund to be using it to pay for salary. And that your unrestricted carryover that you looked at, it's around $700,000, so that you are below that 10% threshold at the end of that point. Capital improvement projects built with the assumption that we will receive the monies for the Tri-Valley Roof project, but no assumption of taking the budget. If those funds in hand, we can't move forward. So that's what I recommend that we consider. And again, as we start looking at firm numbers, we can always go back and make adjustments. Reconsidering revenue assumptions, reconsidering cost expenditure, some of those bigger structural things that we look at. This is my recommendation for our starting point.
Questions or discussion?
I think as part of the finance committee, you know, as we're developing this budget, we're always looking, I mean, the budget is set by the board. If there's ideas or things that you have, but you know what, like if we got the 1650, you know, like what does that look like for the borough and for the school district? And you know, what would we want to do if we got all of that? You know, maybe as a contingency plan, you know, of something. I mean, the board gets to have the input on the budget, and this is a good starting spot. But if somebody else had an idea or had something that they were concerned about or wanted the finance committee to look into to see if we couldn't build that into the budget, I mean, now's a great time to say something. Not that we would close down it if you didn't say something today, but I think it's a good opportunity to have discussion. If there's something you'd like to see us try and build into the budget, if we could.
Anyone else before the vote? Hey, Jennifer, a roll call vote, please.
Don?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes,
Kristen,
Yes.
Jenna, yes. Brett,
Yes.
Salix,
Yes.
James,
Yes, motion passes unanimously. I'm assuming we have no public comment on agenda items.
No, I'm even just checking email there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to our final comments from the board superintendent. Anybody want to start?
I will.
Okay,
Marie's not here, but I really do appreciate the work that she does here at the Canwell School and the lift that she is doing with all the extra responsibilities we have asked her to do. And I really do appreciate that, and I'll keep them short so you can get on before it continues to snowball. Jenna.
oh. I would echo that. I think one thing we could do with more money is provide for Marie for a little more support. Yep, I gotta rebuild the leadership infrastructure of both of these small size. Yeah, so appreciate her leadership here, her energy and her eagerness to say yes and invite people into the school to provide and augment the learning that's going on here, especially what resonated really with me is the challenge with the multi-age group and the value of hands-on learning experiences or experiential experiences that everyone can participate in at their own level. Experience. Thank you. Administrative staff, Dan and Rena, for all the number crunching. It's been a lot between budget revision and the audit. It's really impressive work. So detailed and thorough.
Yeah, it feels like it's a lot got done in one meeting. With the audit was awesome. The feedback so good and contracts feels really good and yeah, and I gotta say the reading, I don't know, that just kept echoing. Like I kept thinking of more stuff. I thought that was a very thoughtful reading that just has so much application and like all of our lives and especially in the students. Like I think it really starts in the school, hopefully in the family, but and for ourselves too here on the board. And then yeah, we don't always get to win everything, but how do we lose and move forward? Yeah, that's just been really laying over in my head as we're looking through a lot of this stuff. Yeah. Ryan.
I don't know if this is my last. I will not disagree. Now I can just show up. Thank you to Marie and the staff we have at Canwell here, holding her together. And all the board members I've worked with and staff over the years for helping me do my job. You're keeping an eye on it, so don't go too far. Thank you for the opportunity to do this, and I look forward to seeing you. Message,
Kristen, yeah. Thanks, Ryan. I just wanted to say I'm always amazed by how the financial stuff all gets worked out. I'm really grateful for everyone involved with that, and I'm glad that I don't want to say I'm glad I'm not involved, but because I should be, but it's really overwhelming. So that's really great stuff that gets put together, and I appreciate everyone that does that. I'm also glad I get to be here again. Running unopposed, I was still stressed out, so I'm grateful I'm here, and I appreciate that opportunity to be here again. So thank you, and I will pass it to Brett.
Well, everyone, I think this is the last meeting, as Ryan said, but first of all, I just want to express my gratitude to each one of you guys. It's been an honor and a privilege working with you. especially for some of you that have just, you guys are such dedicated individuals who share the passion for education and a commitment to the betterment of our schools across the borough. I also want to thank, appreciate all our teachers and staff and our parents that come to our board meetings and give us the information that we need to hear. And all those that contribute to the success of our schools, all three of our schools across the borough. It's been a heck of a ride. And like I said, this isn't probably the end for me. My commitment to education for our schools, and it's still going to remain the same whether I'm on the board or not. And I'm going to continue to support our schools and students and the staff, just in probably other ways. It was a great experience. I appreciate everyone there. And who knows, you may see me again in the future. With that, please welcome Katie in when she comes in. I hope she does well. You guys have been a great board, great to work with, and see you all in the future. Thank you, guys. Let's go to Dawn.
Thanks. Appreciate being in Cantwell and the number of challenges that the staff and students face, just in the utilities alone. I look forward to 3 more years working with the school board as a board of 7, which will have its own set of changes to keep working on the good work that has we've gotten started and started going on in schools. I'll pass it to Salix.
I guess I share the same sentiments as Brett. This, at least for now, will also be my last board meeting. I want to thank all of you on the board for being so welcoming and helpful to me in this time I've been here. And thanks to all the community members who put me in this position. I feel like I have learned a lot, especially, and became more aware of things I wouldn't have without this position, problems we're facing across the state with the BSA issues and whatnot. And besides that, James, have you gone? Is that the last, or am I the last person?
Jenna's still up till, oh, you did? I was losing my mind. I guess it's me. It is. Well, thank you all. Thank you to those that ran, everyone, those that won and those that didn't. And thank you again for all your service, especially a big thanks to you, Ryan, and Brett, and Salix. I know you won't be with us going forward, but we do know you're still here, and obviously welcome your input at any time. And it's just been a real pleasure to work with you. This is basically the best board I've ever been involved in. We work well together. We may differ in some of our opinions, but ultimately, I think we managed to respect each other and come to decisions together as a whole. So thank you again. I'll keep it short to Dan.
So working together to nurture, empower, and inspire today's student positive and shape tomorrow's world. I want to thank Brett, Salix, and Ryan in particular, that willingness to serve, that willingness to actually work together with people on something kind of larger than just yourself and your own interest, your own family, community, sub-community, really more bigger picture than the entire district. So as you were saying, this entire state really appreciate that willingness to serve, whether it's a short period of time or a long. When Marie was speaking earlier, she talked about and reflected a little bit on the importance of kind of learning failure, that willingness to lose. She gave the example here in Cantwell, kind of a mid-age student kind of learning. It's okay to let the kindergartner score the goal. I don't have to be upset that it wasn't my turn. That I didn't get to do it, or it didn't go to me. I didn't. And it made me remember when I would come down here and spend time at Cantwell, when there were a lot of high schools, a lot of them were 5. I remember there was a class of 5 in the past decade. And they would, play games in circle. And if you watch them play, those older kids like instinctively knew how to slow down, speed up, depending on who the other student was. If it was another one of those seniors, man, you'd see guys going 110% at each other, even if it's caribou, and they're just trying to like get to the other side of the gym. They're going nonstop. And at the same time, that same boy that a second ago just going at 110%, when it's time to chase that second grader, try to keep him from getting across the line. That second grader never realized that senior wasn't running as fast as he could. And they like instinctively knew that. There's an incredible culture that you were able to see and witness. Because those things also happen within like the school classrooms and the sports they go to each other. And everything that they do. It was really, really heartwarming to hear Marie talk about this experience with that child that's growing up and going like, okay, so even as we transition those kids a few years ago graduate, we see that through continued guidance and development, a real opportunity to continue that culture. Because it honestly, just watching that was a thing of joy. And to just hear that kind of maintaining, developing these kids again, it is a real thrill. It's a real some kind of sense of achievement. And it's something that I hope that, again, here and in all of our schools, we're able to continue to further develop.
Thank you. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Night, Brett.
Night, Brett.
Take it easy.
Night, Taylor.